Hello and welcome to our first ever online event. I'm Clifton and I'm joined by my colleagues Frederik and Gert, and together we're the Belgium Power Apps and Flow user group. We started this group in 2018 and we have grown to approximately 200 members. Our main goal is promoting the adoption of the Microsoft Power Platform. We are focused on the non-BI components of the Microsoft Power Platform, more specifically Power Apps, Power Automate, Power Virtual Agents, and their interaction with the surrounding ecosystem. We organize events throughout the whole year. Sometimes we do it alone, and sometimes we work closely with the other user groups and associations. If you'd like to know more about us, please feel free to take a look on our brand new website, www.bepafug.be. I repeat, www.bepafug.be. But enough about us. Today we have the honor to introduce someone who has made quite a name for herself. We now switch over to Luise Freese to introduce herself and show us what she's got in store for us today. So if you give us 1 second, then we can switch over to Luise.
Okay, so I will do this right now. So
yes, so go ahead, Luise, and then we'll mute our...
share my screen, and so we can see what I have for you today in the box. Wait a second. Okay, so before we dig into the details of my solution, and before we dig into how I would like to present myself, I would quote some very famous person. I would like to quote Uncle Bill. Uncle Bill said, "With great power comes great responsibility," and this is the tagline for today's event. So I would first like to talk a little bit about me and what ideas I have. I would like to take you through a short demo, which I recorded for some reasons, and then we talk about benefits of my solutions, and then you will get some homework. So this is what will happen today in the next 45 to 50 minutes. So if you're not okay with that, please feel free to just give me feedback in the chat, and then we will cover this as well. So very, very short about me. My name is Luise. I'm from Germany. I'm currently broadcasting from Belgium. My very favorite number is for so many reasons 42. I'm not a developer, not the most technical person in the world. I call myself a maker. Microsoft made me a Microsoft MVP for Office apps and services, and in my day-to-day life, I'm a Microsoft 365 consultant. So I focus on strategy, the art of teamwork, digital transformation. So my punchline is always, I make your work work. So my job is to just put away everything that is just preventing people and employees from really adding value in a meaningful way to their companies, but just keeping them busy, just like repetitive tasks and so on. So I think you heard that all before. Currently, I'm very often stepping out of my comfort zone. So I publish a blog post series about Microsoft Graph Toolkit. So it's more devy stuff, and yes, I'm so late to the party, but finally I published my first app. So I have dyscalculia, so I can't calculate, which is like legasthenia when you can't write correctly or have difficulties with that. But this is for math, and I made a math app. And I need to say a big thank you to Clifton, who introduced me into some seriously cool stuff. Next thing that is on my page right now, I'm running sticker side hustle. So if you are into stickers, I have a side hustle going on with Elio, and it's called Pimp Your Own Device. So, but most important thing is whenever I think, hey, this is seriously comfortable for me, so I'm in my super lame ass comfort zone, no magic happens, no unicorns, no rainbow, no fun at all. So I would like to take you to some stuff that really made me think about what is my role in this environment and how can I really make digital transformation happen in the companies that I consult. Okay, so this is me, very obviously. I said it all before. I really want to transform business. So this is the heavy weightlifting. It's not only deploying tools or just rolling out something in the project, but really doing the heavy weightlifting in that company. Okay, so you might know that I'm kind of famous for sketchnoting at conferences. I have a very famous fan. You can see his tweet right here. Why I want to point this out is it's not that I'm an artist and I am a consultant. It's just like when I draw, I make my ideas visible and I make others' ideas visible. So what I actually do is the solution that I want to show you today, this is how I started my solution. So I wrote down in my own handwriting and with the little sketches what I wanted to achieve. And then I drilled deeper and deeper, and perhaps I followed some other ideas as well. But when I had this picture of my idea, then after that, I started to build that. And I didn't start in an app or in a program or something like that. So this is very important for you to understand how I can come up with something like that. Okay, so do you know this cat here? So this is 100% of my customers. So work from home is the new normal, especially in these days. And 100% of my customers want to work in teams and want to create teams. And this means they want to be teams owners. And I see two extremes in my consultancy. The first extreme is over-restrictive IT. Everything is blocked, sanctioned, controlled. They have awkward processes and make sure that people don't use tools like they are intended to use, but they block everything. This leads most of the time to users who will find very, very creative ways to get their stuff done. So they will use a lot of shadow IT tools and stuff. So this is bad. On the other side of these two extremes, I see teams over adoption. So if we just let users do what they want to do, we have too many teams that should just be channels, and we have too many channels that perhaps just should be chats. So I have teams over adoption, and this is a boomerang as well, as it leads to team spread and information silos and so on. So both extremes aren't good. So we need to balance that. And the my goals in my solutions are: first, I want to create the balance between over restriction and over adoption. Second, I want a lean process to provision new teams. And third, I want digitally literate users. So instead of saying, hey, you are not smart enough or not educated enough to be a Teams owner because you don't understand all that stuff that is happening right now when you create a new team, so that you get an Exchange mailbox and SharePoint site and stuff. I say, okay, perhaps it could be just good to focus on digital literacy and enable and educate our users so that the level of digital literacy increases within our company. Okay. My solution overview, before we dig into the very deep technical details of that, I want the following. A user chats with a chatbot in natural language. So he just said, hey, I want a new team. And this chatbot is powered by Power Automate. So there is a flow behind that chatbot. And the chatbot asks the user, okay, so what's your name, and what's the name of the desired team, and who should be the owner, and what about the members, and can you perhaps name a first channel and stuff. So the chatbot asks all the things that we need for creating a new team. And the chatbot does something else as well. The chatbot checks if the user is already educated. How do we do this? I created two security groups in my Azure AD. One for educated users and one for not educated users. To be in the group of educated users, you need to pass a test. So if you don't pass the test, there's no way to get into this user group. By default, you're in the group of uneducated users. So everyone is an uneducated user unless he/she passes this test. So we check if this user is already in the group of educated users. If user is in this group, then we get manager's approval, and once it is approved, we provision the team with the second flow. If the manager does not approve, we would just send a notification and the process. Just because, okay, perhaps from an IT perspective, this person is educated enough to understand what happens if we create a team. But if the business manager does not approve that, so if he or she, from the business perspective, doesn't see a use case for a new team, we shouldn't create one. Okay, so if our user is in the group of uneducated users, what shall happen then? We invite the user to a training and a test. And if the user passes the test, we go to this step of, hey, manager's approval, and in case of improvement, we provision the team with a second flow, and otherwise we end the process after a short notification. So what happens if the user does not pass the test? We end the process as well, just because if we give you training and we ask you to prove your knowledge and you are not able to prove the knowledge, or you are not educated enough, then this just means you are not educated enough to be in the user group of educated user. So if the user passes the test, this means as well that we will add him or her to the security group of educated users. This means if he or she asks for a team the next time, he or she doesn't need to pass the test again, which quite makes sense in my opinion. Okay, how do we do this? So I like to play with Lego, and I think about my solution as building bricks. So I have 4 bricks for you, and I want to guide you through the bricks. Brick number 1, we need to create an actionable bot. So I don't know if you already played with our virtual agent. I did that last year on Ignite. So I created my first chatbot in under 5 minutes. I was totally impressed. I fell in love with that. And since then, I published a lot of bots, and they are all in production as my customers. So I would say I really like that. So it's very easy in the beginning, and we can go a little bit deeper as well. So basics is go to powerva.microsoft.com, register or log in. So there's a 30-day free trial. You can extend that free trial a lot. I will talk about licensing later. You can set up a new topic and enter some trigger phrases, and then you just outline what the bot should do in your authoring canvas. So I would like to show you that, because if you're not familiar with that, perhaps this doesn't make sense to you at all, what I'm talking about right now. So what I will do is I will just switch to my Edge browser and show you what happens here. So what I did is I'm now at powerva.microsoft.com. And what we see is I do have a bot. I call it the provision bot. And here I entered some trigger phrases like, hey, I need to be the owner of a new team, or how can I get a new team, or I want a team. And just like natural language, I just assumed this is how a user would behave. And then the chatbot answers, hey, I'm the provision bot. I can help you to be the owner of a new team. Is this what you want? And then I ask a question, yes or no. So the answer here is Boolean. So this is I or O. So this is just yes or no. So you can't answer with something else. And if the user says yes, this is what I do, then we ask just a couple of questions like, hey, please give me the description of the team, and will it be private or public, and perhaps the first member, a second member. So actually we don't need that. But if we already fill this team with some content and with some members, likelihood that they will really adopt it will be so much higher. So this is a lesson I learned in my consultancy. So even if we're not talking about flows or Power Automate and chatbots, if there's already something and someone in the team, they will likely to adopt that team as if it's just empty. Okay, so this is what happens here in this conversation. So I just ask questions, and I saw the results of the answers. I just saw them in variables, and I named the variables very nicely. So I figured out hardest part is finding good names for variables. So my brain works pretty nicely until I need to name a variable. I don't know if it's something you can relate to as well. So what we now want is, after this chatbot got all the answers from the user, we want to check, hey, is this user who wants to be the owner, is he or she in that group of educated users? So I call the flow from within that chatbot to check that. Okay, back to my presentation. Oops. There we go. Okay, tricky part, we already said that. So there is a template and we can actually work with that template. So we click on, hey, next action, call a flow, and then we just set a little tweaks in that template to make it do what we want to do. Break number 2, the PVA flow itself. So, and perhaps you notice that there is a parenthesis, so with 2 additional mini flows. So I call this one break, but actually it's 3. So the PVA flow, what does it need to do? It needs to initialize all the variables in the flow. So we got some variables in the Power Virtual Agents, and now we need to transfer them into Power Automate. And what do we need to have? We need to have the basic info about the team. So we need to have the team name, the team description, and the level of privacy. So is it private or public? And we need to have the owner, because there can't be, at least at creation time, a team without an owner. I want to have some members, so this is just nice to have, but I asked for 3 members. And I wanted to add the first channel after the channel general, because I found out if you don't fill a team with dedicated channels, your channel general will be a trash bin. So therefore I said, okay, I want to at least ask for the first channel, which is not just like general. Okay, so these are all the variables that we need to initialize in our flow before our flow can do something. Second thing is we need to check the security group membership of this user. If he's an educated user, so you can see this here on the left-hand side, just like here, then please log his or her request in a SharePoint list. If he or she is an uneducated user, please send an adaptive card to provide links for training session and a test. If the user passes this test, add him or her to the security group of educated users and log his request in a SharePoint list. And if he doesn't pass the test, please then just end this process. So I just didn't mention that here because we just want to know what the flow should do. Perhaps you might have noticed that if I invite for a training session, which could be online, which could be in person, and a test, I need to have this training session and I need to have this test. So I chose to use the Outlook calendar and Outlook calendar events for training sessions, which could be online or in person. We don't know that right now. And to create a form in which you can choose which session do I want to attend. So session A or session B. And then just send automated invitations to this training session. Second, I want a form to test uneducated users. So the test. And as you might know, in Microsoft Forms, you can do quizzes and you can do surveys. So survey is like, there is no right answer. Your answer is the right answer because I want to know what you think. A quiz means there is a right answer. So perhaps it's A or it's B, but there is a right answer. And I just want you to click the right answer. And if you don't know the right answer, you fail. So this is the purpose of a quiz. And I thought, okay, so this quiz will result in a score. And then I can just perhaps just like compare this score with a value or just like 80% and then say, okay, so if it's 80% or more, he passes the test, and otherwise he didn't pass the test. But unfortunately, there's no way to deal with that score in Power Automate. So this made me think a little bit how I should do that right now. So I use a SharePoint list to calculate if the user passes the test or if he didn't pass the test. So I just compare the right answer, so the correct answer, and the answer that is actually given, and then calculate some points out of that. And I have some calculated columns to do the magic behind that. So this is all happening in a SharePoint list. Okay, this is my second brick. We need to go to the third brick. The third brick is the team's provisioning flow. So I don't know if you are familiar with how to provision a team, but when I first wanted to do that, I was like, okay, how hard can it be? I just have a trigger, just like a form or something like that, and then I just take an action like create a new team. But very unfortunately, there is no action in Power Automate, create a new team. So I was like, oh, how can I do this? So there's always a way to do that. And the way is most of the time the Microsoft Graph. So the Microsoft Graph is that super magic thingy that can just literally do everything in Microsoft 365. Means I can get information, and I can post information, and I can update information wherever I like it. So to do that, in Power Automate, in a flow, I first need to register an application in my Azure AD so I can authenticate against the graph. I don't know if you already did that before, if you already went to the Azure portal and registered an application. In case you did not, I would love to show you, just because I was totally mind blown when I saw that first, because I never went there before I did that for the very first time. Okay, so we are here now in my Azure portal, and in my Azure portal, or perhaps just go here. So this is portal.azure.com, and there is a nice icon called Azure Active Directory. And in Azure Active Directory, you can see a blade that is called App Registration. And on this blade, App Registration, I can click New Registration, and then say, this is my super awesome app. And probably this is not the best name. And I can say, hey, where shall it happen? So only in this tenant or multi-tenant or across. And I just say, hey, this here is just, I register it. And now I have an application. And this application can't do anything just because it has no permissions to do anything. So what I need to do is I need to go on API permissions. And then I need to add a permission. And I know, hey, this permission, I need to authenticate against the graph. So I need to click on Microsoft Graph. And now it asks me the first question. So, hey, delegated permission means your application needs to access the API as the signed in user. We don't want that, but we want application permissions. Means your application runs as a background service or a daemon without a signed in user. So this is what we like to do. And now they ask me, okay, so which permissions do you need? And it would be a bad idea to just say, yeah, just literally all, just because I have no idea what I'm talking about. So to figure out which permissions you need, it's always a good idea to go on docs.microsoft.com and just check. So just check, what do they need for Teams creation, or what do they need for groups creation, or what they need to access the calendar of someone else, or whatever. So in this case, we needed some permission. I checked that, and then I added the permissions. And after that, and this is the most important thing, and I hope that you will never forget that, you need to create a secret. A secret, this is like an additional password. You need to create that. You say, hey, this is my super precious secret. This is my lovely secret. And after say, okay, and expires never. So if you don't do this, the secret will expire the day you want to demo it. I promise you. So I've been there, so this happens. Okay, so I say never, it expires never. And now you can see this here, this is the value of my secret. And can you see this here? Copy the new client secret value. You won't be able to retrieve it after you perform another operation or leave this plate. This means if I don't click on this button and save it to somewhere where I can access this later on, I will never have a chance to get this value again. Never, 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 ever again. So been there, done that. This is the most important lesson you need to learn here. So what we do have here is an Azure ID. So we have an application ID and we have a tenant ID, and now we have our app secrets. And once we have that, we just keep them in mind. So it's so easy to keep that in mind. No, we do write that into a variable in our flow, and it's seriously totally easy. So we have the authentication, we have the API permissions, we have the app secret. We needed to grant admin consent. So I'm my own global admin. So this was an easy one. If this is not your own tenant, you need to ask someone nicely to grant you admin consent. And yes, again, save that. And yes, it will expire. So just so you know. And what we need to do now is we need to get the manager of the owner. How do we know who's the manager of a user? So there is an action in flow to perform that. And if this manager approves, if this is a yes, then we need to create a group in the graph. And then we need to update the group to a team. And then we add the channel that they requested. And then we update this request log list. Remember, we have everything in our SharePoint list, and then we send some notifications. And in case the approval is a no, we just send a notification and end this process. So this is brick number 3. Then we already provisioned the team. Brick number 4, I don't want a website and there is my bot. I want the bot to be an app in Teams to request new teams. So what I need to do is I need to publish my bot in PVA and say the channel why I want to publish it is this is Teams. And to have this possibility, I need to have an app ID. So let's just dig into that and look how this looks like in real life. So you notice I'm here in Power Virtual Agent. It's totally easy for me. I just, it's like Visio. This is what Donut does. You draw a box and you draw an arrow and then you combine the two, and it's very, very nice. But then at some point I'm ready. So I'm finished. So I think, hey, this should be published. So I click on this magic publish button. I need to click that publish button at least once. After I did that, this could take a few seconds, hopefully. Okay, after I publish that, I can say, hey, and now I will define the channels. And as you might see, you can do this in Telegram. This is not what we want. And we can do this in Slack, but I chose, hey, I want that to happen in Teams. And the only thing that I need to do is I need to copy this ID here. This is very, very important. And after I copied that, I go to my Teams experience. So this is here. And then I click on the 3 little dots and open App Studio. App Studio is a developer tool for Microsoft Teams. It's very easy to use. So again, there is no code involved. So seriously, no code. And you will find the manifest editor. And in this manifest editor, you can just say, okay, I want to create a new app. And then they ask you for this app ID. And this is just the value that is right now in your Clipper. So you just need to copy that. And then you need to find a short name and a full name and some description. And you need to put your name in it and a website. So you can go just for Microsoft.com. This works. And you can provide some branding, so colors and a little icon and stuff. And there is a second thing that you need to come up with. You need to set it up as a bot. And it is an existing bot, so you need to copy this ID here as well and say, hey, it's personal scope. Why is it personal scope? Just because, yeah, so I need to enter that value here, of course. Did I copy? Yes, I did. So if you don't do that, this won't work. And now there is one thing that you need to keep in mind. We need to enter a valid domain. And this valid domain, wait a second. Just zoom in again. Is token.botframework.com. So this is the only thing that you need to keep in mind. So this is mandatory, and everything else you can just leave in blank. The very, very hardest part was, so right now I don't have all the URLs. Therefore, this is just like complaining about that, but it's only because I didn't provide that right now. What I wanted to do was I wanted to install it. And if you try that, it won't happen. So at least in my tenant, although I'm my own global admin, and although I have all the rights in the world, so it's just like suited to everything, I was not able to do that. So what you can try is at this point, download it as a package. So then you get a zip file in your download folder, and then upload it from your Teams catalog. This is here. So you can just say, hey, I would just upload an app, and then it's just the last one here. So this is everything you need to know to just publish that. Okay, back to my presentation. So we have this. Token.botframework.com as a valid domain. How to start? You need to come up with a description and the name. And if you say, hey, I'm the Teams provision bot, then the machine tells you this is not possible because Teams is a product name by Microsoft and you're not allowed to use this. So this is seriously the hardest part, and it's not technical at all. You need to download it as a package and install it from the app catalog in Teams, and then your users can access this app from within their Teams experience to ask for new Teams. Okay, shall we demo this? Because some parts of this flow are sometimes a little bit slow, and I wanted you not to wait for me or wait for the machine. I pre-recorded that. And sometimes when I needed to wait, I just speeded up the clip speed so that we need to wait. I would say when I did that, so that you are in the know as well. So perhaps you remember the Pinky and the Brain. When I was a kid, this was a very famous one. They were always asking, so what are we going to do tomorrow, trying to take over the world? No, I just want you and me to unfuck user experience and to make user experience really, really great in Teams. And therefore, I would just start this little pre-recorded video. Okay, here we go. So what happens first? My name right now, sorry. My name right now is James Bond, and James Bond is in Teams. You can see this here, and it's asking the chatbot, hey, I want a new team. And the provision bot says, hey, I'm the provision bot. I can help you to be the owner of a new team. Is this what you want? And James said yes, or he clicked on yes. And now the chatbot asks all the questions that need to be answered or that are wanted to be answered to provision that team. So I just typed in some demo answers and said, yes, it should be private, not public. That's all good. First member and second member. And yes, I used a little bit of clip speed here just to not annoy you. Okay, and perhaps you might have seen right now, I can try to show you this again. Perhaps you might have noticed that James Bond got a notification as well. And he got a notification because the flow sent him an adaptive card. And the adaptive card says, hey, your Teams request, demo less code more power. We got it, But with great power comes great responsibility. And we want you to give you some extra knowledge before you may be the owner of a new team. So please pick first your training session. And after you're trained, just take the quiz. So for demo purposes, I just added a delay in my flow for 2 minutes. So to take the quiz and go on in the process. In a real life scenario, I would allow the user to have 5 to 10 days or business days to achieve that training and quiz. So, but I didn't want to have this testing in always 10 days. So please take my apologies for that. I think you will understand that. Okay, so James takes the first form. The first form says, okay, do you want to be in the training session for Teams Owners 1 or in the training session for Teams Owners 2? And perhaps I should have written the date and the time to do that as well, but perhaps it was just a background image as well. So you can imagine that. So he enters his name and his email address and chooses a training session. Second thing is, so we skip because he's now trained and now he needs to test, he needs to pass the test. So again, this is a form, it's just a demo. He proves that he has enough knowledge. Sorry for that. This was not good. So he proves that he has enough knowledge to do so. Wait a second. Oh, come on. Okay, here we go again. And after that, if he proves that, what happens? What happens is that we kick off our first flow. And perhaps you remember we analyze the variables, and after that, we check the group membership. And this group membership, if he or she is an educated user, we will just log the team's request and pass it on to the next flow, which will take care of the manager's approval and the provisioning process as well. But if James Bond is not in that group of educated users, he will be in the group of uneducated users. So we send him an adaptive card with this, hey, please go to the training, please prove your knowledge within a test. And then I just added a delay to let users do the training and the test. And again, in this demo, I used 2 minutes and I used clip speed up when I pre-recorded that. And I would allow 10 days, perhaps, in a company. So what we now need to know is, did he or she pass the test? So we compare some results in the SharePoint list, and depending on this result, we now say, okay, so if he passed this test, we now want to add him to the group of educated users and remove this member from the group of uneducated users. And of course, we want to inform the user, hey, you passed the test, congratulations. We will now pass your request to your business manager. So this is what happens next. So I have the SharePoint list, and in my SharePoint list, there is now a row, and this row now says, I have a new request. And this new item in my SharePoint list, this triggers the second flow. And the second flow, as we talked about it before, it just initialized some variables. Remember when I said, hey, but we need to have the tenant ID and we need to have the app ID and the app secret. So this is all my variables that I need to initialize first. And after I did that, I need to create an approval. Oh, this is really bad. I'm sorry. And for this approval, it's very, very easy because I already know who is the manager. The manager is always the person that is in the manager's object in Azure ID. And now I need to wait for the approval. So, gosh, we are now in Anna's account. Anna is the manager of JameSpot. And Anna gets an adaptive card. And she is requested to approve that. And of course, she clicks on approve. And she adds no comment at all. So this works all fine. She says, hey, go for it. And what now happens is the flow picks up this information as well and says, okay, so if the approval's outcome is approved, then please make an HTTP call against the graph and create an Office 365 group. So, and yes, Microsoft can't stop renaming their product. So now it's a Microsoft 365 group, but still we have first a group, and now we need to update that group to a team. So I tried it with a create a team action, but at least on my side, and it didn't work. So I was like, okay, come on, just fuck it. I will just first create a group and then get that group ID. And after I have that, I can easily update the group to a team. So this is what my flow does here. And I already added a channel. So this again is an HTTP call because I asked within the chatbot experience, hey, would you like to tell me what is your first channel? The first channel was called planning, and I want to add this as a channel so that the general channel is no trash bin anymore. And I will update my SharePoint list. So everyone in IT knows this team already got created. I want to do that, and then I want to send a confirmation to the new owner of this team. Okay, let's see how this went. So as you might see, we have here in our SharePoint list, I have the title, the description, the owner, the privacy, a status is now created, the first channel, and who are the members of this team. So I have a request log list, which is always up to date. This is very nice. Second thing is my owner, and the video stopped as well again, because this is not a nice experience here. And the owner as well, he got a notification. So again, I'm in James' account and James got a notification. And of course, the new team is already provisioned and the members are added as well. And of course, my planning channel is here for sure. So what it does is, again, with great power comes great responsibility. So if we want users to be teams owners, they need to prove knowledge. And if they don't have the knowledge, we don't stop there. We don't say, hey, so that's your fault. You are not good enough, but we keep on educating users. We keep on empowering users. We keep on making efforts towards digital literacy in companies. So the result is we balance governance and a user-centric service adoption. We have a very easily maintainable solution for IT because it's not creating very, very great technical depth, and we don't need a whole team of developers to do that. We have super lean process for the business to request us like that. So it doesn't always need to be a new team, but it could mean something like that. So think about what we could apply that for as well. And we can use one bot to fulfill several asks. The impact on IT is just more productive. So we don't need to spend training so that users could adopt this solution. And we have a fair chance to narrow the historical gap that always happens between business and IT. So business people are sometimes like, oh, those IT guys. And IT guys, and trust me, I've been there, are sometimes like, oh, those users. So perhaps, and no, not perhaps, I'm sure this again is a better together scenario. So we need to create scenarios that make us better together and not fighting against each other. And I think the role of citizen development plays a very big role in that. The impact on the business, quite easy. I have a super easy, understandable process. It really feels not like a technical barrier if I can talk in my natural language to a chatbot. And it will just look cool. So improved user satisfaction just means, hey, finally those IT guys, they came up with something cool. So your homework, and I hope you do it, is go to powerva.microsoft.com and create your first chatbot in less than 5 minutes. And then please tweet about that and tag me so I can retweet you and I can see, hey, what I did made an impact on your work. Thank you.
Hey, Luis, that was a great session. We do not really have questions from our audience, but I do have a question though. Yeah. So how complex is it to set up a solution like this? And how many hours do you spend to set up something like this for let's say a small medium enterprise environment?
Yeah. So if I knew before what I know now, I would say it will take about 2 hours to do everything. When I built that at first, I made so many mistakes because I didn't know how to do that. And I needed to ask a few people, and I needed to Google stuff, and then I needed to read blog posts and stuff, and read the documentation, and I did a lot of tests. So you can't imagine how many flow runs just failed because of reasons I can't explain anymore. So of course, it takes some time. So you will have a learning curve, as in all stuff in Power Platform. So it's not that it just works magically, but automatically at some certain points. But now that I know how it works, I would just go for 2 hours because you
Okay.
need. So I said which bricks I needed to use. Perhaps you remember that I talked about the bricks, and the bricks were. I will show you in this slide, which I originally wanted to hide. So the basics are 2 security groups. We need to have events for training. We need to have a forum for the training session invitations. We need to have the flow to send the session invitations. This is a no-brainer. We need the forum to test users, so asking smart questions so they can prove their knowledge. We need to have a flow to log the test results. We need the SharePoint list to calculate the results. We need another SharePoint list to log all Teams requests. We need to create the bot in Power Virtual Agent. We need to have the flow that puts all the stuff that we have in Power Virtual Agent to some kind of other resource. We need to create the second flow to provision the team. And we need to publish the bot and add it as an app to the team. So I can do this now in 2 hours. But it didn't take me 2 hours when I was learning about that, to be honest.
Okay, but I still have to say that it's quite remarkable that you can build a solution like this and just in 2 hours. Because if you would do it with let's say a traditional software development approach, it would take much more longer to realize this in a solution. Correct?
Yeah. Correct. So to be very honest, even if I was just that mature that I'm now in this solution, to outline the solution, to test it, to document it, and so on. So it would take a couple of days, so 2 to 3 days, but it wouldn't take like weeks, 2 months if I just went for traditional developer tools. So from my perspective, I would not point out, so, hey, we can do so much more than a usual developer, just like a professional developer. I would just, again, say this is a better together scenario. So what my approach is always, I can do the minimal viable product, or I can just make a proof of concept. But when I have that solution, I really want to take a developer responsibility about that and document it and make sure this is a maintainable solution, so that it's not only me and I can do this and I'm the only one who has that knowledge, and I'm creating again information silos, but more having a team of citizen developers and developers who just work towards digital literacy in a company.
Yeah, that's correct. So are there any questions from our audience? I'm just checking. No, there are not any questions from our audience. I don't know if maybe Frederik wants to add something.
Currently not. Maybe for our member community, for the members of our Belgian community, I would like to ask the following questions. If they have ideas for following events that we will organize, they are welcome. So please send them to Gert, Clifton, or me. So I will try to make them possible in our community group. That's all from my side, Clifton. And thank you, Luis, for the nice presentation.
Welcome.
So then I will just stick in just a last slide as an outro. So I would say yes, indeed. So Luis, thanks so much for the session. I have to say it was quite energetic. For those who missed parts of the session, don't worry, as this will be made available through our resource channels. You can find these channels on our website. And once again, we thank you for attending and say until the next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.